Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Showverse. Today, I have a very special guest with me. He is the writer and the director of the upcoming film For the Love of a Woman. I have none other than Guido Chiesa. Guido?
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you, Noah, and happy to be here.
Oh, well, thank you for being on. We know you're a very busy man, but it's very appreciative that you took time out of your day to answer a couple questions. Now, first off, going straight into it, this is an adaptation of Meir Shalev's book, The Loves of Judith. Is that correct?
Is that correct? Yes.
All right. So, obvious question out of the way. What drew you to this book?
Well, basically, it was an option about 25 years ago by an Italian producer. I'm Italian. The movie is an Italian production. Was optioned by a producer who tried to make the film for many years, and it couldn't, basically because the script never worked. Um, then we switched to 2018, and he shows me the book and says, "Are you interested?" And I found in the book a universal story that goes way behind the set in the 1930s in what was back then the British mandate over Palestine, and goes way behind the limitation of the country or the historical period and so on, because it's a strong story about love. On the other end, we still have problems with writing the script because the book it's a very complicated book with a lot and lots and lots of characters as a sort of circular narration, and on top of that, it you know from the beginning what happened, and so there is no mystery to it. So my partner in writing, her name is Nicoletta Micheli, suggested that we would take a little fragment of the book of a little girl who back in the 1930s has been kidnapped by her father and brought to America against the will of her mother. And from that moment on, we found a mystery in the film to be a mystery could be brought to the story, to the book. So we changed a little bit the book. I mean, I think we kept the spirit of the book. It's still a strong story about love, but it's uh, intertwined with a story about searching the truth about themselves, about our own history. We all have, it's important for all of us to know the reality, the truth about us, about our history, our family, our ancestors, especially uh, like it happened with the settlers who moved from Europe what was back then Palestine, and now it's Israel. Um, some of them, they didn't know what they were leaving behind. I mean, think about all the people who have or Holocaust survivors. They don't know much about what happened in their past, and it's very important to know what happened instead in your family histories, because we all are the product of the lives of the people who came before us.
No, and it's interesting that you also tackle, family history because there's many detailed and layered themes that are prevalent throughout this story, not just the movie, but the book as well. One of the biggest ones that I think is probably the most obvious is the theme of love. And in this story, both with Esther and Judith, we see that love is not just something that's romantic and familiar. It comes in literally every single kind, both romantic, familiar, physical, emotional. It's such a deeply layered and complex theme that is tackled in the story. Now, how exactly did you, from at least a writing and directing standpoint, manage to make it so not flawless, but interweave it so beautifully into the story? Were there times where you had to make a correction here, or was it just a matter of instinct?
Um, to be honest with you, I think that it was both in a way. I mean, there was a lot of work. We did several versions of the script. Um, First of all, we started only with the book. Then the book the script didn't work. So we enter with this new character, which is Esther. And from that moment on, we found a chronological order, even if it's are two stories, a story in the 1930s and a story in the 1970s, still we found that it was possible to give an order to it, a progression to it. And also, uh, as you said, I agree 100%. It's a story about love, the different phases of love. There is love as a physical possession. There is love as a romantic dream. And there is love as portrayed by one of the characters in the film, which is Moshe, whose idea of love is seeing the other person, doing what the other person need, not putting himself in the center of it, not being, it's not a narcissistic love. It's the love for the other person. And that's the same kind of love that at the end Esther meets. I'm not gonna spoil anything. She's going through the to the path, to the trip that she does, which is not only a physical trip from the United States going to what is now Israel. It's a it's a it's a traveling into her past, into a story that she didn't know anything about it. She meets a form of love which is a free love. It's giving himself to the other person, the person who needs it.
And that's it. And I'd just like to say that the way you handled several aspects of the story, even regarding love, was handled with a deep-rooted care that I found very, very admirable. But I actually do want to get into certain technicalities that, in terms of filmmaking, that you actually managed to do. Now, you also mentioned that there was a lot of changes that had to be made. You know, a layered book like this, you are right, cannot really be adapted to screen in its inherent form due to how dense it would be. But what I did actually like was the cutting between, you essentially had two stories running congruently to one another, both one set in the past, one set in the present. Now, I'd like to know what the editing process was like because it's very difficult to make a story like that and a format like that work. We saw it with Social Network, and that was able to execute it brilliantly. So I want to know what it was like working with your editor, who I believe is Luca Gasparini, correct?
It's correct. Okay, you pronounce it correctly. Yeah, it was a long process. It took us many, many months, especially to balance the past and the present. The past is in 1930s, the present is 1970s. We decided ahead of shooting the film that they were going to have two different looks. The 1970s, it's almost black and white. The 1970s, the present is always almost black and white because the present of the protagonists of the film of the 1970 stories, they are unhappy people. They are they live in a sort of dark cloud in their lives. It's not complete. There is something missing in their life. The 1930s, instead, it's full of colors, a lot of contrast, but it's almost like a fairy tale because we understand at a certain point that it's actually the narration, the memories of one of the two characters of the 1970s. So he sees this um, as something magnificent, something beautiful. At the end, the two stories get together, and even the style of the film gets together. I'll let the viewer see what happens, and that helps us to establish what is 1930s was his 1970s. Still, we had a lot of troubles. I mean, not troubles. We had to work a lot on balancing when to move from the present to the past and back. It was not very easy, especially at the beginning. We had different ways of doing it. It took us a while to find what was funny in the movie. But I'm happy with it, very happy with it. And I think that another great help to the film was given by the music. The music is done by a Canadian American cello player. Her name is Zoe Keating, and the music is only in the 1930s, not in the 1970s. And in the 19 and then again at the end, when the two stories get together, we have also the music in the 1970s. There is no more difference between past and present.
No, and it's ironic that you brought up the cinematography, because that is something that was distinctly noticeable. And I'm sure it was done by Emanuele Pasquet.
Right, right.
Um, and it's good to hear that there was a lot of care that went into the visual, at least the coloring aspects of the film. Now, what about the actual shooting? Because you actually did manage to get a farm country in, well, turn of the century 1900s to look inherently authentic, and then you also got a 1970s looking Israel down to a pretty minute T. So I'm wondering, what was it like to get the actual like production design done, whether it be the costuming, the makeup, or just the inherent feel of the setting itself?
Well, it was again quite a trip. We initially thought of shooting in Israel, went scouting, and we realized that the movie couldn't be shot in Israel because, especially the countrysides, well, Israel has changed completely throughout the years, and it's impossible to find kibbutz or moshavs as they were. So we when looking for it in Italy, it would be also cheaper to shoot in Italy, and we found that well, we saw initially the whole process started with watching a lot of pictures and film clips and so on, of that period from the 19 early 19th centuries up to 1940s. And what we realized is that those villages, the settlers, were building villages more or less like army barracks, more or less what it was like, especially in Eastern Europe, because that's where they mostly came from. We had in Italy the same thing built during fascism by the government for the farmers. Farmers who didn't have land, the government would give them money to build this very simple villages, very plain, with just a piece of land around it. And there were farmers' villages, and there's still some in Italy. Some of them became normal towns, some of them have been abandoned, destroyed. We found one in Sicily, which is not too far from Palermo, who had, was still pretty, pretty good shape. It wasn't too complicated to refurbish it and bring it back to, a real life. And that was where we shot most of the 1930s was all shot there. Actually, when I went to the area where the book takes place, the Valley of Israel, we found that back in the 1930s, the landscape was the same. Hilly, not too very green, but not too, there was no desert there. We expected, when we went scouting, we expected to see more desert. No, nowadays there's no desert. But even in the 1930s, was more like, the countryside of southern Italy. It's the same, basically. So there was not too difficult to put it there. Then we choose to shoot some interiors taking place in Israel, in Italy. But that's, southern Italy again. It's Mediterranean. The look is quite identical. And then we went to shoot in Israel and shot Jerusalem. We shot in a couple of kibbutz where we shot, for instance, the university and other things like that. And then we shot in the Negev near Matzada. We shot the end part of the movie, and we were there for a week. I would have shot even more, but as I said, it would have been possible to shoot the 1930s. Even the Israeli production designer that we met was very skeptical about doing it. The only place we found that could have been okay were a Syrian army barracks abandoned during the 1967 war, up in the Golan. And the producer was like, well, it's quite risky to shoot here because a rocket might come from Syria and it'll come from Lebanon. I don't think it's a good idea to shoot here. And so that was it. So, but but I'm glad that the film is opening as we on the 25th. It opens on the 26th in New York and on the 25th in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the city in Israel. So I'm glad
Which
it opened there.
Which, by the way, sorry to interrupt. For those of you watching, links in the description for the tickets to watch the movie will be in the link in the description below, as well as other links such as the IMDb for this film, as well as the ability to buy a copy of The Loves of Judith, which this film is in part based on. Now, I actually do have, I know we're coming a little close to our end here, but I do have a couple more questions. One of which is you said this film went right into development between 2018 and 2019, correct? Now, unfortunately, Mare Shalev's did not die until just shy of 2023. So, between the time of development and writing, did at any point in time you had the chance to meet and
Yeah, yeah.
discuss the story?
During our first trip to Israel on February 2022, we met. We had an interesting conversation because he hated all the movies taken out of his book, and he said that it was because didn't want to change anything. While in his mind, people, I mean, film directors and screenwriters should just abandon the book, change it all, take it apart. So we told him what we were going to do, which was a little bit changing everything. And he was like, really? So then we exchanged a few mails, and I mean, he didn't have anything against giving us the rights to the book. Unfortunately, when we went to shoot in Israel, which was January 2023, he was already sick, very sick, and he couldn't come on the set. We invited him to come, and he couldn't come. And as a matter of fact, he died in, I think, March or February or March 2023. So we never showed the movie. We showed the movie to his widow and her daughter. And the daughter told me that maybe she thinks her father would have liked it because it was different from the book. And that was was a plus for him.
Well, no, there's always going to have to be changes that are made when it comes to an adaptation. And I would love to be able to talk to you more. I had a couple things I'd like to ask you, but I know you are very, very busy, and I know you have a lot more of these that you have to do. So, on that note, all I'll say is Mr. Chiesa, I am very, very happy that you took the time to talk with me today. For those of you watching, like I said before, links in the description below to check out the movie. And I hope whatever you project you make after this one is as interesting as For the Love of a Woman is, because I gotta say, I believe this is a film well worth checking out.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate it a lot. Also, your invitation. Thank you. Bye bye.